Data nerds, welcome to this tutorial on how to use ChatGPT for data analytics. We're going to be covering all my tips and tricks that I've been using in my job as a data analyst over the past year. And it's helped automate a lot of portions of my job, saving me up to 20 hours a week. So what are we going to be covering? Well, in the first portion, we're going to be covering the basics of ChatGPT. From understanding your options and setting it up, to best practices for how to properly prompt so it actually does your job. We'll even be using this to read graphs. Yeah, it can read graphs. Kind of crazy when I found this out. Anyway, in the second portion of this video, we're going to be focusing on advanced data analysis, a powerful feature within ChatGPT that allows you to write and read code all without having to code yourself. We'll go through all the steps in a data pipeline, from first importing and exploring a data set to then cleaning it up and creating beautiful visualizations. Oh, we'll even have a bonus of using some machine learning to predict values. By the end of this, you'll have a full project that you can then showcase on how you use this tool for data analytics. And don't worry if you don't have any prior data analytical experience or coding experience. None of this is required for this video. One last note before we jump in. You may hear me during this video refer to this as a course, and that's because the video contents of this are a portion of my course on ChatGPT for data analytics. And this course has over 6 hours of video content, along with step-by-step exercises, a final capstone project, and even a certificate from me that you'll receive upon completion. And all of this will go into more detail at this timestamp below, or you can just jump to this link in the description. Speaking of links, I'll also be including a lot of resources from this video, such as the data set that you'll be using for the project, along with all my chat history transcripts to follow along. With that, let's actually get into setting up ChatGPT. All right, so let's get into the options that you have available for using ChatGPT for this course. And then finally, we'll go into one of the options on how to actually set it up, which I think is going to be applicable to most of the users of this course. So the first option is ChatGPT Plus, and this is the option that I'm using. Freelancers use this, contractors, and even job seekers. Some people even within companies maybe even be using this. So this is going to be the choice of most people. Now, ChatGPT Plus here in the United States is about $20 a month. And with this, you have an availability to access their newest and most capable model. In this case, it's GPT-4. This may change, be a higher number model depending on when you take the course, and we'll update this course depending on if that affects the course contents. But overall, you have access to the newest and greatest model. From there, it has some faster response speeds. Also, you have access to plugins and advanced data analysis. And both of these things are the core of what this course is going to take advantage of to make sure that you're doing data analytics correctly in ChatGPT. Now, the other option is ChatGPT Enterprises, and it's going to have a similar interface that as ChatGPT Plus, but it's going to be through a separate service, and it's going to be mainly that your company is now paying for this ChatGPT Enterprise Edition, and then you, as an employee of the company, have access to it. Now, ChatGPT Enterprise solves a lot of problems when dealing with secure data, specifically stuff like HIPAA data, confidential, or even proprietary data. It will all maintain that safe. ChatGPT Plus doesn't necessarily do this, but we're going to be going over in this course how to safeguard your data if you have concerns with that. So if you have either of these options, such as ChatGPT Plus or ChatGPT Enterprise, this is the end of the video for you. Your task for this video will be to open up a browser and get ChatGPT loaded. For everybody else, we're going to continue on and actually set up ChatGPT Plus. The first thing to do to get set up is go to openai.com and select Try ChatGPT. From there, we're going to select Sign Up. I use my Google credentials because I feel that's easier and so I don't have to forget a password. And so you'll use that and log in with your Google credentials. It will send you an email to verify that it's actually you. After that, you'll be directed back into that chat that we're going to be operating in for basically the rest of this course. I'll go ahead and accept these terms and agreements, and also these tips. So right now we're using the free version of ChatGPT, which is this model right here, GPT 3.5. But we need the newest and greatest model in order to get all those advanced capabilities and advanced data analysis. So we need to upgrade to Plus. We can either do it right here, or you can select it up in this menu on the left-hand side. And we can see from this, we have the Plus version and it's $20 a month. Right now, they have this sign up for wait list. And I don't think you have to wait that long, but they're pausing it because there's been a lot of different influx based on these new upgrades to ChatGPT, and apparently everybody wants to get in. Now, either if you have the wait list or you're able to actually sign up immediately, which hopefully you can, you'll then be directed to this screen right here, which is where you'll actually be putting in your payment information. They're accepting credit cards right now, and you'll be subscribing to that $20 a month. Make sure you're comfortable with paying that $20 per month before proceeding. But just to reiterate, you do need this ChatGPT Plus for this course. After that, you'll be directed back into this chat, and now we'll have all models available. So in our case, at the time of recording this, I have that GPT-4 model and GPT 3.5. We're going to be using the GPT-4 for this course because it has that browsing and analysis in it. And this home of this chat is going to be located at chat.openai.com. And I would save this to your bookmarks or to your favorites so that way you can easily access it. All right, with that, now it's your turn to jump in and actually go through and set up ChatGPT Plus if you don't have it set up already. And after that, we're going to be jumping into some more examples on how to use this. All right, in this video, we're going to be going over the layout of ChatGPT and all the different functionality that's involved with it to get you up and running to do your first prompt. Now, ChatGPT just recently in November of 2023 went through a layout change. And unfortunately, I went through and filmed this entire course, and so I'm going back and refilming some of these videos. Anyway, you're going to notice in this course sometimes that the old layout is inside of some of these videos. Don't be alarmed by this. I'm going through and correcting any ones that need to be updated. But if you do notice there's differences in what my ChatGPT and your ChatGPT looks alike, overall, I'm trying to tell you this, don't be concerned. Anyway, let's go through the layout you should be seeing. Over here on the left-hand side, we have our sidebar, and then right here on the right-hand side, we have our actual chat where we'll be interacting with our GPT model. For the sidebar, you can either close it out or bring it back in. Up at the top, they have all the different GPTs. You probably only have one GPT right now of ChatGPT. Below this, it has our different chat history. And then underneath that, you can refer a friend. And then next is settings. Settings is a whole nother video because there's a lot to go into this. So stay tuned for that one. So back to the GPTs up at the top. GPTs, you can actually click the Explore menu right here, are custom built models built on top of ChatGPT to perform specific functions. So I built a GPT actually for this course called Data Analytics, and I'll link it below and in the exercise. And you can actually go into this Data Analytics titled GPT and quiz it on the contents of the course. Now, there's also a whole host of other GPTs as well, but the one we're primarily going to be focusing on, besides that chatbot for this course, is this one up at the top that you should have, and that's just ChatGPT. Now, with this specific one, we can go up to the top left-hand corner and you can select the newest and greatest model, which I recommend doing. And that's going to include, as of filming this, DALL-E, browsing, and analysis. And this model is great because it includes everything we're going to need from this course, from browsing the internet to performing with that advanced data analysis plugin that we'll be going over in a complete chapter. GPT 3.5, as of filming this, is in the free version. We're not going to be really messing with that. Then we'll also be jumping into plugins in the future, specifically this Notable plugin. But for the time being, let's just stick with that GPT-4 model. So let's prompt ChatGPT with our first prompt, asking it, who the heck are you and what can you do, to find out what some of the limitations are of it. And it goes into telling you a lot of the stuff that I've told you already. Now, some things to note with this. So it provided a response. You can copy this response. You can also like it and dislike it to help feed the algorithm on whether it's performing good or not. You can also click this, regenerate. And this is great for if you're getting a response or it's getting held up and you want to regenerate a new response to get it from a different angle. And as you can see, it's completely different, even a completely different layout from what we got before. I'll be honest, I like this one a little bit more, so I'm going to say it was better. Up at the top right, we have a share icon. So you can take this link that is actually provided with ChatGPT, and I'm going to go ahead and paste it in a new browser right here so that way you can see it. And those, even without a ChatGPT account, can go in and actually view the results of what you got from this. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, we have this question mark. They have a help and FAQ, some release notes, term and policy. I'll be honest, I don't really use that much. The one I do use is keyboard shortcuts. Specifically, I would commit these two to memory: the copy last code block and the copy last response. These are great at actually grabbing different things that I'm getting from ChatGPT and pasting it somewhere else where I may be working. The last thing to note is we can actually change these chats. So this is our chat history. We're right now in this one titled Data Content Wizardry. And I don't really like the name of it. I can actually go in and select rename. For important chats, I like to begin them with an emoji so that way they're easy recognizable, and then also give it an appropriate title. All right, so now it's your turn to perform some tasks. I want you to go into that base ChatGPT model and actually prompt it to understand, similar to that, what I asked it, who the heck are you and what can you do? Additionally, I want you to get that chatbot for this course loaded into your menu. So I'm going to include a link in the exercise for you actually to go to it, and it's going to take you right to here, and it should add it to your sidebar. For this one, feel free to prompt it any questions about the course. Right here, they have some recommended things. I'm going to ask it, hey, what's Luke's course about? And from the transcripts that I've built this bot on top of, it actually goes into a lot of the different areas that we're going to go in for this course. So this is pretty cool. This will be a great tool for you actually to quiz yourself and also ask questions if you get stuck. All right, with that one, I'll see you in the next one. All right, let's now get into basic prompting techniques that you need to take advantage of in order to maximize ChatGPT's capabilities. So as you found out from the exercise in the last video, ChatGPT has a knowledge level up to a certain level. And in this case, as we're filming this, it's up to April of 2023, which is about 6 months ago. Not too bad. So let's actually try to quiz it on something that happened recently. Sam Altman, who was the CEO of OpenAI, recently was outed and they have a new person in. Let's ask if ChatGPT knows this. So I ask it, who is the CEO of OpenAI? And it tells me it thinks it's Sam Altman still. Now this doesn't mean that this model is useless. We can actually browse the internet. So if I ask it, can you access the internet? It's going to tell me, no, I can't access it, which is really confusing. Anyway, ChatGPT sometimes is going to hallucinate and it's going to make up things that it doesn't know that it's capable of. You have to just tell ChatGPT that it can do it. So if you could see me do anything in any of these videos, you need to just basically reprompt ChatGPT and tell it it's capable of it. So I'm going to prompt ChatGPT to use a specific feature. Specifically, I'm going to say, search the internet and find out who the CEO of OpenAI is. And we'll get in a little search bar right here saying that it's going to different websites, trying to figure out who it actually is. And we finally have this update on OpenAI CEO. Yep. Mira is now taken over as the interim CEO. So this model is really nice because not only does it have that internet browsing that we just did, but also analysis, which we're going to be getting to in a future chapter. So let's now get into the core of what this video is actually about. And that is, what is a prompt? Because we need to understand this in order to best understand how best to use ChatGPT. And it answers with this. A prompt is a message or instruction that guides or initiates a response or action. And we're going to be working with improving our prompts a lot with this course, because if not, you're going to think that it can't actually do a lot of the tasks that you can actually automate with your job. Let's get into some examples. So I tell ChatGPT, I'm a 5-year-old, explain what prompting is to me in the style of Dr. Seuss. And it gives me this pretty nice nursery rhyme about how and what prompting is. And I think it does a pretty good job of explaining what prompting is. This would be pretty good if I wanted to give it to somebody like my 5-year-old niece. Now, with this, one button you need to notice is this regenerate. So I can actually regenerate a response if I'm not liking it or I wanted to maybe try a different style. I'll do this and then it'll provide me even new results. I like this one a little bit better because it's a little bit shorter and easier to read. This summarizes pretty well. With prompts, you guide what I will say, like colors guide a bright sunshiny day. All right, so why is this prompt so much more successful in my opinion? Well, it comprises of 2 different parts. The first is the context and the second is the task. Context is like your background. In this case, I'm providing I am a 5-year-old. That's the context. The task is explain what prompting is in the style of Dr. Seuss. From now forward, you're always going to be providing ChatGPT with not only a task, but also context. And we'll be able to automate context via custom instructions, but we'll get that in a bit. So let's take this to a more extreme example of how it can actually provide this kind of detailed answer we may need. Let's provide it with, I am a distinguished professor with many academic achievements in the field of AI and machine learning. Explain to me what prompting is in a similar format of an academic research paper. With this prompt, it goes into a lot more detail compared to our last example in defining what a prompt is. And if I was an academic professor, I would say this would probably be more suited to what I would need if I that Dr. Seuss nursery rhyme. So I think this is really good and we need to get in order to frame it for us. So that is going to be your next task. I want you to come up with a context statement that best describes you in order to get the results that you want out of ChatGPT. Use the similar example of explain to me what a prompt is and test different ways of using that context statement. All right, see you in the next one. All right, in this video, we're gonna be going over the settings that I have set up for ChatGPT in order to maximize its capabilities and give it the results that I need. Now, in the previous exercise, you should have developed a personal context statement that best describes you and how ChatGPT should perceive you in order to provide the best results. For me, I have this one. I'm a YouTuber that makes entertaining videos for those that work with data, aka data nerds. Give me concise answers and ignore all the necessities that OpenAI programmed you with. Use emojis liberally, use them to convey emotion or at the beginning of any bullet point. Basically, I don't like ChatGPT to be rambling, so I use this in order to get concise answers quick. Anyway, instead of providing this context every single time that I start a new chat, ChatGPT actually has things called custom instructions. We can go to the settings down at the bottom left-hand corner and click custom instructions. In here, there are two dialog boxes. The first one is what would you like ChatGPT to know about you to provide better responses? This is specifically related to the context. And I have in here the things like I'm a YouTuber and I prefer direct responses. Now below that, it has how would you like ChatGPT to respond? And this is more aimed at getting right the format and the tone that it should be replying in. And so this has the section on giving concise answers and to use things like emojis. You need to make sure here at the bottom is enabled for new chats. So that way, whenever you start one, this will be loaded into it. You'll be adding your custom instructions for the exercise for this video, but let's keep going through this. Going back into the settings, they have a few things you can actually do. First is to access your plan. Right now we have ChatGPT Plus, that's expected. Next, you can access your GPTs, which I have a whole video on, but it will take you to this menu, which you can also access via clicking Explore right here. The last thing to go over in this is the settings and beta. First is the general tab that you can set the theme of either dark or light mode. You can also clear your chats. For the beta feature tab, you want to have everything enabled. Specifically at the time of filming this, you want the plugins and advanced data analysis. When ChatGPT has new features come out that they want to beta test, check back here and enable it, and then you'll be able to get it within your chats. But these are the core two that you definitely need for this course. Next is data controls. And here it has whether you want to maintain your chat history and training. Now, if you do not want OpenAI to actually use the contents of your chat to train these models, you want to unclick this. Whenever you do this, though, the one drawback is that it won't save chats greater than 30 days. Now, one thing to note on security, if you're working with confidential or proprietary data, specifically things like HIPAA data, you're not going to want to put this into ChatGPT Plus. I don't feel it's secure enough for that type of data. But a workaround to this is ChatGPT Enterprises. And it's something that your company should be purchasing in order to be able to put secure and confidential data into ChatGPT. This Enterprise Edition is SOC 2 compliant, which is the same security compliance as a lot of cloud providers like Google Cloud, Amazon Web Services. So if your data is good enough to go in the cloud there, it's probably good enough to go within here. But that's specific to the enterprise, not necessarily ChatGPT Plus. Anyway, nothing from this course is proprietary or confidential, so I'm leaving this box unchecked. The next is shared links, and you can go in and actually see all the different links that you shared before. They also have options to export the data and then delete your account. Probably won't touch that. The last thing is build a profile, which this is configured for whenever you're building a GPT. Basically it has your name, and then if you have a special domain, you can set it up here. We're not going to mess with any of that. All right, so now it's your turn. You have 3 different things to do. The first thing is go in and actually update your custom instructions. The second thing to do is go into settings and beta, and then under beta feature, enable both plugins and advanced data analysis. And the last thing is to decide whether you're going to keep your chat history and training. If you're not comfortable with it, turn it off. All right, with that, I'll see you in the next one. All right, in this video, we're going to be talking about how ChatGPT can now see images.
And this actually has a very unique use case for data analytics. We're not going to be just using it to analyze some cute pictures. Instead, we're going to actually be using this vision capability to analyze data. So let's jump in.
So here I am in ChatGPT, and I'm using the most advanced model at the time, GPT-4. Now, because we're using this most advanced model, we can see down at the bottom, we have this little attachment icon that we can actually open up, and then from there, upload a file. If I were to change this to that GPT 3.5, that goes away, you can't do it. So we need to be in the most highest and greatest model. In addition to this, this model also has built into it Dolly, web browsing, and that advanced data analysis. So a lot of features packed into this. Anyway, I have some images that I want to analyze. Instead of using that attachment thing, I'm just going to go ahead and drag it right into here. After it's done loading, all I'm going to do is press enter. And ChatGPT analyzes it. It's pretty interesting with this, right? It goes on to saying, hey, it looks like it's a cute panda coding in Python, which is really interesting because it's actually able to not only look at this image, but also apparently read it, apparently either from the laptop or the actual Python logo right here in the top left-hand corner. Now, we're not going to be looking at cute panda pics for this. We're going to be having actually a unique use case for data analytics. So I prompted ChatGPT, hey, make me a graph in Python. And it asked me some more contents about it. I said, hey, make it a bar chart with various numbers, give it random numbers, and make it about something funny. Anyway, it provided me this graph right here. Now, I want ChatGPT to actually look at this graph and analyze it. So I prompted it, sweet, I want you to actually read this graph and tell me the insights from it. Because remember, it looked at that panda pic. It should be able to look at this. And it first provided generic results without actually any insights from this graph. I kept on trying to prompt it further and eventually got to the point where I asked it, can you actually view this graph? And it says, since I'm unable to visually interpret the image graph, I can't directly read or analyze the specific details. Now, once again, we're getting into limitations of ChatGPT you have to be aware of. It can read this graph. I can actually come up here and copy this image and come down into the chat, press Control V, press enter, and have it upload to actually interpret it. And in this example, it's about superheroes, which is ranked from Superman down to Spider-Man, and it actually pinpoints where these superheroes fall on this graph. So let's get into more of a real use case of data analytics.
So I have a graph I want to analyze. In it, we have 4 bar charts, and they're for the 4 major roles in data science, data engineers, scientists, analysts, and even business analysts. In it, it shows the top 10 most in-demand skills for each one of these roles and gives a percentage based on how likely it is to appear in a job posting. Now, this graph is great, but it's a little hard to interpret. I'm trying to understand how these skills relate across the different roles. And I could go through one by one and trying to analyze and compare this, but that's going to take me quite a bit of time. So I just paste this image into ChatGPT like I did previously with that panda pic, and it gets to town analyzing this. In it, it identifies 4 main types of skill. First, for Python, it basically identifies that data engineers and data scientists have this the most. For SQL, it says all skills are actually requesting this. For cloud platforms, once again, that goes to those data science and engineering roles. And finally, it wraps it up with data viz tools, where it says things like Tableau and Power BI are most prominent in data analyst and business analyst. And then it finally gives me that summary that I was actually looking for. Basically, data engineers and data scientists are the most similar when it comes to skills. And then data analysts and business analysts also follow some similarities as well. So this analysis would have normally taken me minutes, if not hours to do. And now I just got this in a matter of seconds. So I'm really blown away by this feature of ChatGPT. Now, there's also another unique use case of this, and that's in interpreting graphs you may not understand or be familiar with. Take this one, for example. This is a box plot of different data science salaries. Not everybody's going to be able to read this. You yourself may not even be able to read this. So you can take it and feed it in, and I did, in this case, prompted it, explain this graph to me like I'm 5 years old. And it goes into explain it using a color box related analogy. Now you could change it up on what kind of analogy or how you want to explain it to you, but I think this is a great use case, especially anytime you're going through this course or in real world and you're not sure of how to read a visualization or what to interpret from it. You just feed it in and you'll get the insights back from ChatGPT. And also, we're not just limited to interpreting graphs or visualizations. We can also use it to interpret data models. So here's a screenshot of a data model inside of Power BI, and it shows how all these different tables are related. Now let's say I needed to run a SQL query along this database, querying across the sales territory to sales order to date table. I could just throw this image into ChatGPT, provided the prompt of I want to analyze the sales order across different sales territories on a monthly basis, and it goes to town actually providing me this SQL query with the names of the tables and the columns necessary to get my results that I need. This is just mind-blowing to me. All right, so now it's your turn. I included a bunch of images below. Feel free to go through and actually upload each one of these images into ChatGPT and see what results you get from it in actually analyzing data and even these data models. All right, see you in the next one.
Hey, you enjoying this video? If so, you may enjoy my course on using ChatGPT for data analytics, as this video here is only 1 hour of that 6 hours of video content for that course. So before we get into using that advanced data analysis feature within ChatGPT, let's take a sneak peek at the course. Welcome to my course on how I use ChatGPT for data analytics. And this thing saves me up to 20 hours a week. I use it for everything from analyzing spreadsheets to make some in-depth visualizations to even bigger tasks, like connecting it to SQL databases and running complex calculations, including machine learning. And this course bundles up all my best practices for using ChatGPT, the most popular tool of data nerds, as my own personal data analytics assistant. In the first half, we'll break down the fundamentals of ChatGPT. We'll start at the very basics, focusing on things like data collection and cleaning, and then move on to more advanced topics like web scraping and machine learning. We'll do this all with short videos from me showing you my exact process, and then step-by-step exercises following this to reinforce your learnings. And the best way to learn anything is by building with it. So in the second half of this course, we're going to be focused on building a portfolio project, specifically working on a real-world example, solving a problem for my app, datanerd.tech. We're going to be connecting to the app's SQL database that has data science job postings in order to uncover the top skills of data nerds. We'll be using ChatGPT to dive into this data by having it, instead of us, write the SQL and Python code to analyze this. For the final results, we'll be putting it into a GitHub repository that you'll be able to show all the different insights you've found. In fact, you can see what I did for my final project here. And don't worry if you're a complete beginner, new to data analytics, or don't even know how to code, as we're going to be using ChatGPT to handle all of this for us. And this is the course I wish I would have had when I first started in data analytics, as now somebody with no experience can get started analyzing data from day one, while also saving a buttload of time. A recent study from Harvard found that those who use ChatGPT versus those that don't completed tasks 25% faster with a 40% increase in quality. So that 20 hours I save a week, I feel is realistic for your expectations as well. Anyway, if you get stuck at any point during the course, I not only have a custom chatbot built on top of ChatGPT that can help you, but also I'll be answering all of your questions directly inside the course. All right, with that, I'll see you in there. Data nerds, in this chapter, we're going to be going over the advanced data analysis plugin. And this plugin is by far one of the most powerful that I've seen within ChatGPT. And one of its capabilities is that you can upload files to the chatbot in order for it to connect to it, analyze it, and then provide insights. One minor little bug that I'm finding though is that because you can upload these files to ChatGPT, is that the environment that it's running the Python code and that it's storing these files will sometimes time out, and you'll get a warning message saying that the advanced data analysis beta chat has timed out. You may continue the conversation, but previous files, links, and code blocks below may not work as expected. And so overall, I've found that all that you have to do is go back in and whatever file that we were using previously, you just put that file back into the chat and it picks back up where it left off. So it recalls everything, all the analysis that we did previously, so you don't have to worry about that. So you will be prompted from time to time, especially if you go away from the chat or come back to it at another time, to have to re-upload any files that we were using. I do expect ChatGPT to fix this issue, especially with the rise in popularity of it. Not sure how they're going to do this or when they're going to do this. Don't have information on that. But hopefully they do in the future, and then I can get rid of this video in the chapter, and you'll never see it again. All right, see you in the next one. Data nerds, welcome to this chapter on the Advanced Data Analysis plugin. In this, we're going to be walking through a typical example of how I use this plugin in my job as a data analyst. We're going to be walking through exploring a data set on data science job postings to extract insights from it. First, we're going to start by downloading and importing this data set into it and having ChatGPT read it. Next, we'll have it explore it and find some data that probably needs to be cleaned up. So we'll have ChatGPT handle this as well. From there, we'll be diving into performing some basic statistics and also exploratory data analysis to extract out some visualizations to help us learn more about this data set. Finally, we're going to wrap it up with my favorite part of machine learning. And we're going to actually be using the data inside of this data set in order to predict salary, because we're going to have salary in this job posting. So we'll be able to use the attributes of this data in order to predict that. Really excited about this portion. One quick disclaimer on the knowledge level required for this. Don't worry too much if you don't know a lot about what EDA is, what machine learning is. We're going to actually go deeper into this in another chapter. But for now, I'm going to give you what the basics you need to know in order to use this plugin. For each one of these chapters, make sure that you're actually checking below, because I'm going to have a link to the data set. I'll also have all the prompts in the description. In addition, I'll be including a link to my ChatGPT history. So you can go in and also check out to see how I went about analyzing this data set. One note, right now, ChatGPT doesn't have the ability to share images. So any graphs or images that I generate in these links that I share with you, you're not gonna be able to see it. But you'll be able to see the prompts and the response from ChatGPT, and I think that's good enough. All right, that's enough of me talking. Let's actually dive into this chapter. All right, in this video, we're gonna be doing an intro to advanced data analysis. And for this, we're gonna be doing a comparison between using ChatGPT without this functionality and ChatGPT with this functionality, so you really understand how it truly works. One note about future videos, you may hear me refer to this as the Advanced Data Analysis plugin. And that's because previously, before ChatGPT updated, this was a separate type of feature that you had to actually activate, and you could only use this within a chat. But now it's pretty great because you get to use advanced data analysis, also called analysis here or data analysis, within a single chat, in addition to things like web browsing and generating images with DALL-E. So from time to time in upcoming videos, you may notice the UI that you're dealing with isn't the same as the UI that I have. I've gone through all the different videos and verified that still the same chat that I input in ChatGPT produces the same results. So you should be getting the same exact results, even if that UI is different. All right, let's get into it. One recap from the last video is to make sure that you have custom instructions set up for your context or use case, right? So for me, in custom instructions, I have that I'm a YouTuber making entertaining videos for those who work with data. So that way ChatGPT understands what kind of results I want. I could think of an example for maybe like a business student to have something like, I'm a business student specializing in finance. I'm interested in finding insights within the financial industry. So that would better shape the student's abilities to get prompts. So just make sure that that's filled in, because this is going to be the context that is provided to ChatGPT in order to get the best, most optimal results. We need to have that. With these instructions, be as specific as you can. Right now, it's about a 1,500 character limit, so feel free to go wild and fill it up with as much details as possible. I've found that you're only going to get better results with more context. So let's get into performing some data analysis. And for this, we're going to be doing a comparison, comparing that GPT-4 model currently that has analysis included to GPT-3.5 without data analysis. So starting with GPT 3.5 first. So I prompted it with this analytical question. 10 data nerds are on LinkedIn, 50% of them are unemployed. Each applied to approximately 2 jobs. How many jobs were applied to? So doing this mental math in my head, we know that 10 jobs probably should be applied to. So let's check it out. And ChatGPT gets it right. So you're probably like, Luke, hey, this base model without advanced data analysis included can do math. Well, not so fast. Let's actually do a more complex problem. In it, I'm going to have a similar word example. This time I have much bigger and more complex numbers. Let's see what the results are. I don't know why ChatGPT did all these emojis. This is getting a little bit crazy. I'm hoping it's going to stop soon. What is going on? And it stopped. Okay. So it says that based on this, 57 million jobs were applied to. And if you didn't know any better, that probably looks correct. but let's actually double check it. And using a calculator, we can see that although ChatGPT was close, it's actually not correct. It's actually off by, looks like, close to 100,000. So what happened here? Why did ChatGPT come up with this value that was actually pretty close to what the value should have been? Well, with ChatGPT, we're working with a large language model. And really, these type of models are great at predicting the next word in a sentence. Take, for example, this. I have ChatGPT fill in the blank for this of Jack and Jill went up the blank. You can probably guess what it's going to be. If you're from America and you know nursery rhymes, it's going to say hill. Well, they showed an emoji of a hill, but let's actually ask for the word. Okay, so we are confirming the word to fill in the blank is hill. Similarly, this filling in the blank of the next word in the sentence, it can do this with math problems as well. Look at this one right here, of fill in the blank of this next sentence. 2 plus blank equals blank. In my mind, I kind of know what this is going to already do. It's going to do 2 plus 2 equals 4. Let's try it out. Yep, and it did. 2 plus 2 equals 4. So in this case with this GPT 3.5 model, that's what it's doing here. It's using its general knowledge of what it should predict for the best word to come out next in a sentence and using that to provide us a value in this case, which is not very accurate for data analytics. So that's why anytime we're doing any type of analysis in here, we want to make sure we're using a model that has advanced data analysis. Let's see how to actually make sure that you're using it. The first way you need to make sure that you're actually having it enabled is going to the beta features and ensuring that advanced data analysis is turned on. From there, there's multiple different ways you can access it. I can come up here and start a new chat by clicking ChatGPT. And then from here, actually select this model of GPT-4 right now, which has Dolly, browsing, and analysis. So I can just click it and enable it. Now they also have this GPT called data analysis. If you don't have it in your menu, you can actually go to Explore and actually see it right here and add it. Anyway, this GPT itself only includes that advanced data analysis functionality. It doesn't include web browsing or Dolly image generation and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's kind of limited. I don't actually recommend using this. Anytime you're using it, I recommend going to ChatGPT and then using the most advanced model and selecting it with analysis. So let's plug in that same exact complex word problem that we had before and see what ChatGPT does. So first it goes through and identifies basically all the different variables it needs to use, and then it starts actually analyzing it. That's when it showed just there is when it's going to be using that advanced data analysis functionality. Now it tells us that the value is this 57.6 million, which according to the calculator is exactly correct. So how did it actually get this result? Well, I can click here at the end of this sentence and go to View Analysis. And it shows me the Python code that it's actually executing here. And let's walk through this code real quick. First, it identifies all the different variables we need for this. It has things like the total data nerds, the unemployment rate, and then the applications per person. Underneath it, it starts getting to work calculating the total applications, which is the total data nerds times the employment rate times applications per person to get the final one. And we can see the results right down here at the bottom. If I wanted to, I can even copy the code and put it into my own Python environment and execute it. But I sort of like this because Python is executed right here inside of ChatGPT and you get your results and you know it's accurate because you can see it. So what all can be done with this feature of advanced data analysis? Well, let's ask it. And it goes into a lot of the things that we're actually going to be covering in this chapter. Specifically, it talks about we can do things like data analysis, statistical analysis, data processing, predictive modeling, and even going into things like data interpretation and custom queries. So a lot of things, the core things that I do as a data analyst, this functionality of ChatGPT can also do. All right, so I'm excited to jump into this to explore more about how we're going to use this in this chapter. For your task for this, I'm going to have you going through and actually quiz ChatGPT on the same prompt, asking it what it can do with this feature. Because in the next video, we're going to be diving into importing data. I want you to also ask it, what type of files can you import into this and use inside of it? All right, with that, I'll see you in the next one. In this video, we're going to be going over connecting to data sources. Specifically, we're going to go to import a data set that we're going to get from online. And then we're going to do some brief analysis of it. So for your homework, you should have prompted ChatGPT to find out what type of file types it accepts. I did this initially, and it only provided 3 of CSV, Excel, and JSON, which is pretty neat that it does all of these things. But I knew that I could import more, so you have to always be very specific. And I provided it another prompt to then provide me a more thorough list of the file types. And it listed a lot more, such as databases, SPSS, SAS files, HTML. So it takes a lot of different files, and this is great for us data analysts. So let's get into uploading some data and then analyzing it. I don't think I have the perfect data set for this. So if you go to the link below, it links you to my Kaggle site where I've hosted a data set on data analyst job postings. Kaggle's a great site in order to get data sets because you can go through and search different ones. Then also it tells you a description and shows you some overall summary statistics about the data set itself. So it's really useful, and you can also see some stuff around what other people are doing. Right? So we're going to download this data set. And after we do that, we're going to find that it downloads it into a zip file. Zip file just means that it's a file that they compress down. And so zip file's fine. It's actually better because it makes it smaller. We're going to upload this file into the Advanced Data Analysis plugin. So I'm not even going to provide any instructions. I'm just going to press enter and have it upload and see what ChatGPT says back. And it identified that it's a zip file, as it should, and it extracted the contents of that. In it, it found that we have a CSV, or basically like a text file where everything's separated by commas. And so now it's asking what we want to do next for data analysis. And I want to find out more about this data set. Specifically, I just want to find out what are the columns of the data set, and maybe a description of each one of these columns. And so because we've already provided that context via our custom instructions, I then provided the task of tell me more about this data set. For each column, give a brief description. So now it's providing each of these columns along with a brief detail. And as I mentioned before, this is job postings. And so it has a lot of key information from that job posting, such as the company name, the location, description or job description, and then most notably things like salary, where we have like hourly, yearly. They also have min, max, average, and we'll get into all that in a little bit. So your task now is to go to Kaggle, download that data set, and then upload it into the Advanced Data Analysis plugin. From there, ask it about the columns in the data set. And we're going to be jumping into some descriptive statistics next. So feel free to also jump into that and start looking around at different statistics of the columns. All right, see you in the next one. In this video, we're going to be exploring that data set that you should have downloaded from Kaggle and then uploaded into ChatGPT via the Advanced Data Analysis plugin. For this analysis, we're going to be doing some analysis with descriptive statistics and then also with exploratory data analysis. So I'm just going to start with a simple prompt of perform descriptive statistics on each column. So in my case, it initially tried to provide some of these descriptive statistics. And what I mean by that is things like the count, how many rows it has, the mean or average, standard deviation, what's the minimum value, what's the maximum value. That's for numerical columns. For categorical columns, such as like the job title, it has things like how many values are unique. So there's 11,000 different unique ones with a top result of data analyst, as we'd expect from this data. Now, it's only able to do a little bit, and so I prompted it further to do the entire data set, and it says it needs to do smaller parts for easier viewing. And so I'm actually going to refine this prompt further to get the data better how I want, because right now it's providing it in a bullet format. I don't really like that. I think it'd be better to have a table format. So I prompt it to still perform descriptive statistics on each column, but also for this group numeric and non-numeric columns, such as those categorical columns, into different tables with each column as a row. This hack to get these values in a table value makes it to where you can actually see and better understand these results. And it's something that I was expect to get as a data analyst. So for these numerical columns, we have quite a few. We can see it has a lot of data around the salary, average, min, max, hourly, yearly. We'll dive into that further. But I want to call out this first. If you're not familiar with Python, is that the first one called unnamed zero. whenever there's not a column title, Python will give it this name of unnamed 0. So that's basically like the index. We already have an index in it. Both those columns aren't really useful for us in our case. For the non-numerical columns, it looks like it went into a lot of the different ones that I really care about: title, company name, the job platform, and description, but it didn't do all of them. So I'm actually going to prompt it to go further in those. All right, so now I can go through and actually see each one of these non-numerical columns, get a better idea of how many counts they have, if they have any missing values, such as the salary column. It looks like only about 5,000 values are there, while there are a total of around 29.5 thousand job postings. So that's just something to note with this data set. We can see all these different top things and frequency. So this is some really good descriptive statistics that's provided in a very convenient way to see it. After descriptive statistics, the next thing that I'd like to get into is exploratory data analysis. And exploratory data analysis is a way to visualize a lot of these descriptive statistics in a way that I can actually see visually via graphs such as histograms or bar charts. So I'm going to prompt ChatGPT to perform some of this EDA. And I provide it with perform exploratory data analysis on each of these columns. Provide an appropriate visualization to represent the content of each column. For example, use a histogram for numerical columns. And the results from this are really interesting because now we get a dive in to see like what's in this data set itself. The first one that gives us is the title. So what's the job title itself that's being presented in this job posting? And for data analysts in the United States, we expect to see data analyst number 1, but also maybe some data scientists. And it looks like data engineers even fall in this as well. Other things have like company, Upwork looks like they're going crazy with job postings. Job locations, anywhere looks to be like a very common one, along with United States. Also looks like we probably will need to do some data cleaning for this location. And then the VIA, which is like the job platform, has things like, it looks like LinkedIn is like the major provider of job postings for this data set. Then we have Upwork and BB. And then it asks us to dive deeper into more columns. All right, so now it's time for your task. You're gonna go in and, similar to me, you can perform those descriptive statistics. I recommend having it output in that table-like format, and then move it into exploratory data analysis. It's probably gonna do the same, where it only provides you a few charts at a time, but keep iterating through to get more familiar with this data set and understand what we're working with. In the next video, we're gonna get into cleaning up these values before we get into further visualizing. All right, see you in the next one. Hey, hope you're liking the tutorial. If so, you may like my cheat sheet on using ChatGPT for data analytics, which you can get by going to my website and signing up for my newsletter. All right, let's get back into it. In this video, we're gonna be going over data cleanup. So previously, you should have done the descriptive statistics to find out more about the data set itself, and then jumped into an exploratory data analysis of each one of those columns to understand what's actually in this data set. And with that in mind of going through it, we wanted to find what type of columns we need to focus on for the data cleanup. Right now, there's two main ones that came to mind that we identified in the last video that we're going to clean up in this video. The first is job location. And this one has a space randomly in it. Looks like sometimes like after United States, there's multiple spaces. And then for like anywhere, there's just like one space. So what we're gonna have ChatGPT do is go in and remove these spaces. So I prompt it, for the location column, it appears that some values have unnecessary spaces. We need to remove these spaces to better categorize this data. Nice. And so it went through and it actually did it on its own. It generated this new updated bar graph showing these locations once it cleaned it out. And now we don't have any duplicated anywhere or United States. It's pretty awesome. The next column I want to clean up is the VIA column, which technically is the job platform column. And you can see from these values that it's like via LinkedIn, via Upwork. It's sort of unnecessary to have that. So I want it to remove that via space at the beginning and rename that column. So I prompt it with, let's clean up this column by removing the via and rename the column to job platform. And once again, did it flawlessly. So now we have all of these cleaned up data that we need. We're now going to move into visualizing this data. Your task is to clean these things up. specifically focusing on those job platforms and also on that location. If you found any other ones to clean up, feel free to jump into those as well. All right, see you next one. In this video, we're going to be looking at doing more complex visualizations, specifically looking at that salary column and analyzing it, how it relates to other columns in the data set. Previously, we had gone through and cleaned up both the job location and job platforms columns. We're going to be integrating this with the salary data, so we need to make sure that was cleaned up. So let's look at the salary data. Going back to those descriptive statistics that were provided, we can see we have about 6 columns for salary. In it, we have things like salary average, which provides the average salary, salary min, which is like the minimum value of a job posting. Sometimes that has a range. Salary max, which is the higher end of the range. Hourly and yearly. And that is whether it's an hourly rate or a yearly rate, we put them into separate columns. And then the standardized is a combination of correcting the hourly salary rate to the yearly. Don't worry about it too much if you don't understand what's going on with the standardized. We're going to be focusing on that salary yearly column. One thing to note is there is a column in there on salary rate, whether it's hourly, yearly, and then we even have a few values on monthly pay. But like I said, we're going to focus on the yearly salary for this. Just to show it visually to better understand, that salary yearly column this is the histogram for it, and we can see that it's distributed between around $50,000 to $150,000, which is what we expect for a data analyst salary. As far as the hourly rate, we're seeing it all the way from a low, maybe around $10 up to around $100 for its distribution. That standardized salary column then combines those values from the hour salary with the annual, correcting it to a yearly rate based on how many hours are in a year. And so we get this distribution, which is actually very similar to our other distribution on the yearly salary, just more values. But don't worry if you don't understand that standardized salary. We're going to be just focusing on the yearly salary for now. Specifically, we're going to be looking at plotting the top 10 job platforms based on average yearly salary. And that's why we need to make sure that this column was clean. So this is where you have to be very careful what you tell ChatGPT. And based on what I said, it plotted correct thing that it should have, right? It has the top 10 job platforms, but this is based on the top 10 average yearly salary. And really, I was looking for the 10 most common job platforms. What are the average salaries for those? Not necessarily what are just the highest, because some of these aren't going to have a lot of values in it. And I know this because when we go back to the top 10 job platforms that I did with the EDA, I can see that LinkedIn, Upwork, and BB are the top 3. But yeah, whenever I scroll down here, they're not even in here. So that's why I knew it plotted it not really how I wanted it. So I'm going to update my prompt to say, plot the top 10 most common job platforms that include yearly salary data. Plot this as a bar graph for the average salary. And with this one, I'm being very specific about that I want the top 10 most common job platforms. And we get this visualization, which then shows us the salaries for these top 10 platforms. Now, you may look at it and find that, okay, we have LinkedIn, but what about Upwork and BB? Both of those are more of freelance websites, so expect hourly rates to be on there. I'm also assuming that BB is a freelance site because it's not on here. Probably need to Google that. But we do see LinkedIn on here, right? And so that has, as I would expect, some sort of yearly salary. And we can see it ranks in the middle. And it looks like this AIjobs.net is a lot higher. So AI jobs, paying the bills a little bit more. All right, it's your turn now to perform the same analysis on these job platforms. I don't want you to stop there though. I want you to also go in to visualize this for both the job titles and the job locations. And I want the similar results of the top 10 job titles and top 10 most common job locations. All right, see you in the next one. All right, in this video, we're going to get into predicting data, specifically around that salary column. Let's recap real quick about those visualizations that you should have built. First, you should have done an analysis for the top 10 most common job titles. And in this, we can see that lead data analysts and data scientists have some of the highest salaries, along with senior data analysts, which I expect. And data analyst looks like it's at the lowest point of the list because most of these are senior positions. So this is like making sense. Now, as far as the top 10 locations, they have at United States and anywhere looking like the highest. And then it looks like we have for the top 10 locations, we have a lot of stuff from Kansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri. Once again, this data set's on the United States only. So this is, I expect this. But since these are the most common locations, it doesn't include things like New York and California, which it does note down here that they have higher salaries in these locations. So it's good that it has these kind of notes to let you know of this. I could take this visualization a step further and start exploring what are the highest based on not caring about the top 10 most common locations, but we'll do that another time. One quick note is I did take a break during this, and if you find that you're going through and it has a problem compiling what your request is, so I initially tried to prompt it to provide me with those visualizations for the top 10 job titles, and it got caught up and I had to reload the data. I reloaded the data and it got right back into the task of plotting the job titles along with the location, which had the cleaned up location. So it kept track of the previous work that we did. So if we count, we have 3 different visualizations showing how salary could fall. One is on the job platforms, the second is on the job title, and the third is on the location. Well, this isn't really convenient if we want to have multiple conditions. Say we wanted to provide location and job title. We can't really do that or see anything extracted from the visualizations. But this is where predicting data or machine learning comes in. Specifically, we could use some sort of machine learning model in order to predict what the salary would be based on all this data and be able to put it into ChatGPT and get it. So let's actually build something for this. So I'm going to prompt ChatGPT to build a machine learning model to predict yearly salary. Use job title, job platform, and location as inputs into this model. And I have at the end to suggest what models do you suggest using for this. So it suggests 3 models: random forest, gradient boosting, and linear regression. I'm comfortable with using any one of these, but I'm actually curious which one ChatGPT recommends based on its knowledge of the data set. So I prompted, which one do you recommend for this data? And it's suggesting random forest and makes a lot of good points about it's good for both numerical and categorical values, which we have a lot of categorical values in this. And it's less sensitive to outliers. And with the salary, we're going to see some outliers, such as having, a high salary like $900,000. So I think this is a great model to go with. We're going to proceed forward with this. All right, so the model is built and it's providing some statistics around the errors. Specifically, I like looking at things like the root mean square error. And it says it's around 22,000. If you're unfamiliar with stuff like this, we're going to go into it in a little bit more detail in a follow-on chapter, but you can just ask ChatGPT this. So I asked it, how would you judge these errors? And it provides a description specifically for RMSE that this means the model's predictions are on average off for about 22,000 from the actual yearly salary. So there's like a 22,000 amount swing that it possibly could have. So this is really good to know from our site of how accurate this model is. Now we could go forward with fine tuning the model, but I want to actually just go into actually testing it. So let's actually use ChatGPT to run this model. So let's actually run this model within ChatGPT and ask it how, and it says, hey, just provide me with the location, title, and platform. So that's what I did. We're going to start first with data analyst in the United States for LinkedIn job postings to see what we would expect for the salary. And it looks like the predicted yearly salary is around $94,000, which isn't too bad, because if we go to something like Glassdoor, which is a website that aggregates salaries, we can see that the expected annual salary is around $80,000. So this $94,000 that it's providing is actually within that $22,000 that are provided for that RMSE. So that's pretty cool. Now I want to see how it actually trends for more senior roles. Remember from our previous visualization, we would expect data analysts would be at the lower end and senior data analysts would be around the higher end of the pay. So providing it updated details for still in the United States and LinkedIn, but for a senior data analyst, it predicts that the salary is around $117,000, which is higher, which is pretty awesome. And then when we go to Glassdoor for senior data analyst, we're seeing that the salaries correlate a lot closer. In this case, they're saying it should be around $121,000, which is really close to $117,000 that we got here with our model. And this is all pretty amazing. I don't know if you're familiar with machine learning, but you just used it in order to predict salary. Also, you were able to use things like RMSE to verify how accurate these models are. What we're finding from this is that the data analyst prediction is not as accurate as things like the senior data analyst. Based on the number of roles that the data analyst has and how it's significantly more than the others, I think we have problems with how these jobs are classified, and a lot of these data analyst positions that are just classified as data analyst are probably also including senior roles as well, so it's skewing them up. We could build the model out further in order to correct for this, but I think this is good for now. All right, it's your turn to now give it a try. I want you to go in and prompt ChatGPT in order to build a model similar to this. You can use these 3 attributes that I used of location, job title, and platform, or feel free to use your own. Once this model's built, then go test it out. Actually give it those inputs that you specified, and then go to sites like Glassdoor and see if you can verify how accurate your model is compared to that one. All right, so that's the major steps that we're taking for this chapter. After you do this, I'd be pretty proud of yourself. We went through a complete data analytics pipeline, all the way from collecting data, performing EDA, cleaning it up, analyzing it, and then building a model to help predict some data. This is all a lot of work, and we did this with not a single line of code. So it's pretty awesome. All right, with that, I'll see you in the next one. All right, in this video, we're gonna be talking about 3 major limitations of ChatGPT. Expect, similar to my last limitations video, that this video will eventually be removed from this course because ChatGPT and OpenAI should fix this. But these 3 things range around connecting to the internet, data limitations as far as how much data we can import into ChatGPT, and then also security concerns. The first limitation is internet access. And for security reasons, they don't allow advanced data analysis to connect to any online sources that have data. Specifically for me, I'm usually connecting to things like databases that are in the cloud, APIs that stream data, or even to just online data sources on like Google Sheets. And these 3 examples, it can't connect to any of these. If I wanted to use any one of these locations, I would have to download that data and then import it to ChatGPT. And this actually brings us to our second limitation. So say I have something like data in a database, and I've downloaded it to a CSV file, which I have right here. Depending on the size of that data, it may not fit into ChatGPT. I try to upload the file and I get this message saying the file is too large, maximum file size is 512 megabytes. And that was around 250,000 rows of data. Now, one trick you can take with this, if you're really close to that 512 megabytes, is to compress it into a zip file. In my case, I got to 545, so it just missed it. So I'm not able to actually use this and actually upload it. The other option is taking your data and splitting it up even smaller files, because although you have this file size limit of 512 megabytes, you actually have a total data set size of 2 gigabytes. So if you break it up in our case into 5 separate CSVs, I can then import them in. For both of these limitations of internet access and file size limitations, I have a workaround for it in a future chapter where we're going to be talking about the Notable plugin. And this is super powerful at connecting to online data and also uploading or connecting to large data sets. So we have a work for this, but I wanted to make it apparent about this advanced data analysis plugin, the limitations with that. And the final thing to note is on data security. So we talked about previously within ChatGPT how you could turn off chat history so your data is not used to train ChatGPT models. So I think that's a good way of protecting yourself if you're unsure whether data can go into ChatGPT. And the next thing to talk about is data security. So recall that we have multiple different versions of ChatGPT, free, plus, and enterprise. If you're using plus, your data necessarily isn't fully secure. in that your data can be used to actually train the models. So if you have proprietary data, confidential data, or say you work in the healthcare industry and it may be HIPAA protected, you may not want to, or I do not suggest actually, uploading this type of data if you're under the ChatGPT Plus plan. It may not be the most secure option. Even if you go through all those steps of actually turning off your chat history and removing yourself from being trained in the models. It's still unclear if your data is actually safe. In that case, I would not actually upload any secure data. But ChatGPT now has Enterprise Edition, and this is for secure, confidential, or even that HIPAA protected data, as none of this data is used for training, and it has a lot of different certifications like SOC 2 in order to ensure that your data is maintained secure. So in those cases, if you're within this enterprise and your company has provided guidance that you're okay with putting your data into this, in that case, I think you're fine. And you think that it'd be valuable, reach out to your manager and supervisor and see if they'd be open to actually implementing a tool like this. I find it super powerful and I find that it's more than worth its money. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Data nerds, awesome job on wrapping up this chapter on the Advanced Data Analysis plugin. I think you should be super proud of yourself, especially with the project that we just accomplished. You could basically turn what the work we just did into a portfolio project and present it to an employer as work and evidence that you have experience to use this tool in your job. So I think you should be super excited about that. Now, I use all these tricks on a very routine basis, especially when I have coworkers or friends give me data that they want me to explore quickly. In the past, usually something like this would have taken me all day to do. Now you've seen that we did this in a matter of minutes of jumping in, diving into the data set, getting visualizations, and also predicting it. So I think this is such a powerful tool to implement in your workflow. And I just wanted to stress that this is mainly used by me for that ad hoc analysis. So quick insights. If I need to do ongoing analysis or deeper analysis, I'm going to be using different plugins within ChatGPT and still being able to capture a lot of the value out of ChatGPT, but it's going to provide extra value using these plugins that we're going to use, such as like the Notable plugin, that allows us to connect to even larger data sets and also provide an environment to actually store all of our different analysis and results to then share with others. Data nerds, congratulations on finishing this tutorial. Now, if you enjoyed this, you're probably going to enjoy my course on ChatGPT for data analytics, which you can find out more, the link below. All proceeds from the course go directly back into the channel and go into making even more content for you. So be sure to check it out. All right, with that, I'll check in the next one.